Yeah, well, thanks very much, and again, thanks for letting me stop by. This week, one of the pieces of legislation we passed out was telling the president he's got to come out with a plan how he's going to balance the budget within about a 10-year period. And we saw just in about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, that we passed legislation saying that if we don't pass a budget, there's no budget, no pay. And this is really in particular to get the United States Senate moving, because they haven't passed a budget in almost 4 years now. And first of all, when they heard we were going to do this, they pretty much said, it's just some kind of publicity stunt. And within a day or two, they all changed their tune and said, oh, well, we better start thinking about this, that we might have to pass that piece of legislation. And because earlier this year, or even late last year, the new budget committee chair over in the Senate, she said that they weren't even going to even consider passing a budget this year. So we have at least forced the Senate to have to start looking at doing something about a budget. Now, the question then becomes, why is it so important? Well, the Congressional Budget Office just came out with a report this week, and I tell folks, if you have insomnia, I can make sure that you won't fall asleep if you read this report, because it'll scare the daylights out of you. And one of the most interesting points when you start looking at it, when you look how much we're paying in interest every year, in 2013 they were saying that we were going to pay around $224 billion to pay interest on the national debt. And we also have to remember that we owe foreign creditors over $5 trillion right off the bat. But when you look at that, they're spending $224 billion just to pay interest on the debt in 2013. The projection is that the way we're going in the next 5 years, that'll be about, in 10-year period of time, we'll be from this about 1.4 trillion and about 224 billion, or about 5 to 1, from discretionary spending to how much you're paying in interest. That'll be less than 2 to 1 in 10 years in discretionary spending and in debt payment. Right now, we're borrowing 43 cents on every dollar that we spend in Washington. We're going to be borrowing money to just pay interest on what we owe. So just looking at that, this is why it's so important that we have got to get spending under control. And that's one of the reasons why we insisted that we had to pass the no budget, no pay legislation to get the United States Senate.
Do you really think that they won't come to some deal to avoid the sequestration? I guess there's a part of me that just
No, I tell you, no.
Really?
I think there's not a soul in Washington that does not think that at the end of this month sequestration doesn't come in. We're still working with the Corps of Engineers, and we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure as they go forward that with their budgeting that this project's in there, because of course with Findlay and Ottawa, Hancock County, Putnam County, the Corps has seen something happen here that they haven't seen happen across the country, where communities come together, put the dollars out there, and to say that this should become a model.
Has anything come up that's new?
Right now, we're still working with the Corps. I'm going to keep, and my office is going to keep working with it, because that's what on our top priority list right there. Because we were very fortunate last year that we didn't have the heavy rains that we could, but who knows what could happen this year. First of all, it's a the horrible tragedy up there, and one of the things that we have to look at is a couple of things. One, first, who's getting firearms that commit these horrendous acts, and one of the areas that we have to look at is on the mental health records, and getting those records somehow put into the databases. There's been a lot, there's been some kickback for years that people are very afraid about doing that, but so you've got to be looking at that. The other is that and I've asked my staff in Washington to check this with the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms and explosive folks. So when you go in to buy, you go into a store to buy a firearm today, you got to fill out a form, and they got all those questions there that you have to fill. Are you the true buyer of this weapon? And they go ask you all, are you a fugitive from justice? Narcotics, and go down the line. First question: are we enforcing the laws that are already on the books? I want to know from the Justice Department how many convictions last year or in the last 5 years they've gotten on these. Because some of these penalties are already 10 years. 10 years. And if they're not enforcing the law, what good is it if we put more laws in the books if we're not enforcing the ones we already have? I want to make sure that the Justice Department's doing its job and what it's supposed to be doing already with the laws that are on the books, and let's go from here. Yep.